Jen. So everyone, please be kind to Jen today because she's not feeling very well, yet she's showing up for us. So let's be kind and nice to her. So good afternoon, and thank you for spending your lunch hour with me today. There's a lot of content to cover, and I will need your participation. So I'll be asking questions during the presentation, and I will appreciate it if you could type your answers into the chat box as we go. And then at the end, we'll open for Q&A, and then you'll be able to kind of unmute yourself, and then you can ask more specific and longer kind of questions and give me a little bit more context to your specific business. And if we run out of time, do come to our business strategy advisory clinics at our central library. We organize one every 2 months. So we do like monthly workshops, but the clinics are only every 2 months. And that's face to face. And you have kind of like 2 to 3 hours to kind of ask your questions. And you can also learn from other people's questions. And I think the people who have been to the clinics, you know, they keep coming back because it's really helpful. It's beneficial. So I highly recommend for people to come to Business Strategy Clinic. We don't have the date yet, but by the third or fourth part, I believe that we should have the dates locked down by then. So I will let you know the dates when we have them. And so moving on, a little bit about me. It's just that when I started studying, I studied in 2 universities at the same time. So I did NUS Mechanical Engineering in a day school, and I did night school, ACCA. And at the same time, I was working for this auto parts manufacturing company called Interoga Sinderan Berhad. They manufacture auto, radiators, and they're located in Johor. And so after I graduated with 2 degrees, what I did was I worked for finance in LA, and every 4 months I worked on a different project in a different department in basically a different country. So I traveled through, Los Angeles, Hong Kong, Switzerland, the UK, and Singapore. But in the end, when I quit my job, because, I was sleeping 20 hours a day after about 3.5 years, I was actually based in London. So I decided to kind of just stay there. And what I did then was, through a series of very good decisions in investments, I ended up just buying up properties around Canary Wharf in London, and then literally retired age 29 and just, kind of survived off rentals. And in 2011, I kind of got a little bit bored of just, being in property. What I did was I bought a tech startup in Singapore and, helped them to build up their middle management and help them to kind of like access more new markets. And then that was later on, after about 2.5 years, acquired for the $1 million+ range. And so from then to now, I've just been, traveling, doing a lot of stuff, getting involved in side consulting stuff here and there. But, now that I'm properly back in Singapore for the last 3 years, what I've been doing is teaching entrepreneurship. And I do that at SUSS, NUS, and also now at NLB. And at the same time, last year, I decided to also start a social enterprise called Made Without Borders. So, we were quite shocked by how much maids are paying their agents for like a 2-year contract. And we decided that, we're going to eliminate, maid agencies completely and have our app, go through, have people log in via their SingPass and then go through the entire MOM process without needing an agent. So if you're interested, the links are also in the link tree. You can find out more about Made Without Borders. So without further ado, we're going to move into question time. So this is the time in which I hope you can type your answers into the chat box. So my question is, can people please tell me what is the difference between sales and marketing? So in your opinion, what do you believe is the difference between sales and marketing? So do type that into the chat box. I know you're eating as well, but please try to participate. So Jamie says that marketing drives traffic, while sales is the deal being closed. It is quite close. And then Sue-Ann says marketing is spending money for the brand and sales is getting the revenue. Yeah, kind of true. Marketing is raising awareness. Yes, marketing is raising awareness. And then Wendy says that marketing is positioning the offer, attracting the audience, while sales is basically giving the offer and closing the audience. Wendy, I think you should teach this course. You have literally described it exactly. Marketing spreads awareness and sales is closing the deal. That's what Evelyn says. So that is correct. But let's kind of like talk about this in a more kind of like specific definition. So in today's world, people kind of almost see the two interchangeably, and it's not uncommon, for us to see job titles like, sales and marketing executive. So this question that I have is, with every campaign, there's always a mix of the two, but there's always one dominant strategy. Somebody would go with a very sales dominant strategy or a marketing dominant strategy. And in general, there are actually three key characteristics between them. So the first is push versus pull, outbound versus inbound, and hunter versus farmer. You always hear these terms, but so the question is the customer coming to you willingly, or do you have to go out and find the customer? So when we think sales, we think push, we think outbound, and we think hunter. So very proactively reaching out to the customer. And when we think marketing, we think pull, we think inbound, and we're thinking farmer. So almost like reactively waiting for the customer to come. So can anybody tell me what is the dominant strategy for Apple? Is it sales or marketing? Yeah, so Jeremy says inbound, and inbound is basically sales. Marketing, sorry. So marketing for Apple. So that's very obvious. What about Avon, the cosmetics company? Is that a sales or a marketing technique for Avon, the cosmetic company? Sales. So Sue-Ann says sales, and that's correct. So the first difference between sales and marketing is understanding the direction of travel of the customer. Now, what is the second difference? Not moving. So the second difference here is when the customers are at the stores looking at cosmetics. So are they asking for an anti-aging cream, or are they asking for Estee Lauder Advanced Night Repair Serum? So basically, are they identifying only with the product category, or are they specifically looking for a brand? So essentially, you're looking at how they recognize the product category or the brand. And finally, there's one third difference between sales and marketing, and that is everybody loves to buy, but nobody likes to be sold. So everyone wants to go to the shopping mall and buy, buy, buy. In fact, people queue for days to buy the latest iPhone. But when people show up at their doorstep to sell them something, they want to chase the guy away with a broom. So what truly is the difference between sales and marketing is the way it makes the customer feel. So basically, an elite sales closer is someone who creates an environment for people to buy. In short, the elite sales closer is actually a master in marketing. So the salesperson who is good in both sales and marketing is someone that we call the elite sales closer, because they know that great marketing makes the sales side of things easier. So a majority of the selling is already done at the marketing stage, and they recognize that. And closing becomes very simple when they've already convinced people of the credibility, of the product relevancy, and of their story. So if you do this right, so easy to close your sales. So the elite sales closer is somebody who knows that sales is a numbers game. Get people into your funnel and maximize the conversion rate. So it's as simple as that. So to illustrate this, we need to go into bigger frameworks, but before we go into the bigger frameworks, let's just talk about the 101 of the whole sales terminology. So let's take, for example, a web store that sells baby clothes. So first of all, is traffic. For a web store that's selling baby clothes, traffic is essentially how many people you can bring into the store. So this is usually defined by the number of visits per day. For a kind of like a retail store, that's, foot traffic, it's a number of visits a day as well. And lead generation is basically very expensive to bring in. So through, just basically bringing in traffic is very, very expensive. So today, depending on the type of client that you want and you're trying to bring in, and the action that you want the client to take, you're going to realize that it can cost as much as $5 to $13 just for you to get the customer to click on the link of your website. So about 10 years ago, when I ran Tech Sailor, I needed to show a user an ad maybe about 7 times before they would actually remember you and they would click and they'll follow through. And now with so much online noise, it's closer to about 21 times. So it's not 7 times anymore. So imagine how much advertising dollar you have to spend before you get that click into your website. And it's just the click. It's not even a sale yet. So just imagine having to pay $5 per click and having to feature the same ad 21 times before the customer come to your store. Not just to buy, but actually just to visit, right? And this is why lead generation feels sometimes very difficult. And these days, when you want to generate traffic, this is what people think about. Oh, it's so expensive to do ads, and things like that. So anyway, this is traffic. The second thing that you need to know about in sales is that once you've brought traffic into your web store, your focus is to convert those people towards buying in your store. And this is called conversion rate. It usually sits between 1 to 3% if you don't do much, to force that conversion. To increase conversion rates, there are a few things that you can actually do. You can focus on like a low commitment customer journey by making the checkout process as quick and as seamless as possible. Things like guest checkout. So they don't have to register, just immediately they want to buy, they get to buy. They don't have to register. They don't have to tell you a whole lot of other stuff. They don't need memberships and things like that. Or you could create urgency through live streams. So TikTok live streams are particularly good tactics to kind of, get sales. Giving people too much time to shop, you realize it reduces their desire to actually commit to a sale. You can also convert more people by targeting more payment forms. So you can reach other people without credit cards through, pay now, or you can say buy now, pay later. And, just create as many different types of payment formats as possible. And finally, there is average order value, or what we call AOV. It is essentially how much they actually end up paying. So to increase AOV, so AOV is essentially your basket, how much they put into the basket, how much they end up buying. To increase your AOV, you can then focus on product bundling with complementary products. So if someone is, say, buying baby clothes, you can bundle it with a gift set with baby socks, baby bibs, and then you can call it Mama's First Hamper or something like that. For Alvin, who sells mattresses, he might want to sell it together with bed sheets, pillows, blankets, duvets, and things like that. So it's just product bundling. And also your pricing strategy. So are you cheaper or are you more expensive than your competitors? And also you can tie, a higher AOV, getting people to add more stuff into the basket through, promotions like, 1/1, 2/2, 11/11, Valentine's Day, Christmas, that kind of stuff. So in general, if you take your visits per day and you multiply that by your conversion rate and you multiply that by your average basket size, that gives you your total sales. So AOV is tied to another terminology called the lifetime value of a customer. So say you achieve annual sales of $1 million and your total number of clients for that year is 10,000, right? So 10,000 people bought stuff from you. And the average is, they do 1 million. This means that every client spent an average of 1,000 in your store this year. So if your average order basket, your average order value, which is your basket, is, $100, this means that your client came back 10 times that year. The lifetime value of your customer, which is your LTV, is essentially tied to how many times you are able to make the client repeat that sale. And this is tied to branding. Having your EDM, having a social media engagement, also like, having rewards for, loyalty points and stuff like that will actually generate a lot of LTV. And later in the series, I'll be showing you how you can use an AI tool called Bloom to do follow-ups and kind of keep forcing, them to keep coming back. And it's a much cheaper way to convert existing funnels rather than to pay to generate new leads in a new funnel. And this is all done via WhatsApp for Bloom. And we'll talk about that more, I think, in part 3 as well. So these are the key sales terms here, which is traffic, conversion rate, AOV, LTV. And in general, you need to be aware that traffic is very expensive to acquire, which is why someone who is an elite sales closer will focus on conversion rate, AOV, and LTV, because they want to milk as much of the existing traffic as possible. So once we have this terminology, we are going to move on. So this is what a sales funnel is. Sales funnel essentially speaks about a buyer's stage of readiness. So essentially, a sales funnel is a journey that a prospect takes from being aware of your product or service all the way until the point in which they actually go and purchase your product. So sellers use funnels to kind of track a prospect's progress towards closing, and then they step in and they try and remove things like objections to buying, and they address your needs so that they force you to funnel down into a sale, right? And if you say, oh, it's too expensive, then you go, oh, how about here, a discount voucher for you. So if you see that they've been hovering around their basket, they keep coming back, they keep looking at their basket, but they're not acting, then you go, how about a 10%? And then they're still hovering, and you go, how about 20%? And then they buy. And then that's when you know that you've captured that and you've funneled them through. It's important to note that while most sales funnels have the same major stages like, product consideration, evaluation, you realize that actually the way that a prospect navigates through these stages is actually heavily dependent on their circumstances, or the product, or the service, or the company, or their available current resources. And it's entirely possible for a prospect to just bounce across multiple stages before moving ahead, or they'll jump straight into buying. So because of these deviations, if you're a seller, you shouldn't think of the sales funnel as a guide. It's not like, think of it as a guide, sorry, not as a one-way path that every prospect would follow. And in sales funnel, people start teaching this concept called tofu, mofu, bofu, which is like top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel, each with its own KPIs to track. And when you have a chance, you can actually do a couple of YouTube videos to learn about this tofu, mofu, bofu, and basically sales funnel management. But today, I'm not going to go through sales funnel management because you can easily learn this on your own. It's a very obvious data capture and KPI model. There's no multi-modal element to it, so it's very easy to understand. And frankly, I believe that the person that was inventing, tofu, mofu, bofu was high on drugs when he came up with it, because it's such a fluffy concept. I don't like it, so I don't teach it. What I do like to teach is the next thing, which is buyer's pyramid. So I believe that has a higher level of complexity, and it helps you to actually understand how sales funnels work better. So I'm going to put the 4 terms of this perspective, this LTV, AOV, and stuff, into the sales funnel right now. And I'm going to show you that traffic is actually right at the top, right? So it's what we call top of funnel. It's basically leading the traffic in. And then you realize that the gradient, how fat or how skinny your funnel is, that is essentially your conversion rate. And then AOV is then the rate at which you generate your sales value at the end of the funnel. So if you think about sales funnel, how fat, how skinny, top, bottom, that is essentially your 101 of your sales terminology. So moving on, like I said, let's turn the sales funnel upside down. And then let's look at this particular model called the buyer's pyramid by Chet Holmes. And I really much prefer this compared to a sales funnel model. Every time you buy a product, there will always be people who want to buy, and there will always be people who don't want to buy at any point in time. So remember that the entire funnel is the traffic, and that you've already brought them into your store. Now they're deciding whether or not they will buy. So let's take an example of, say, someone who distributes marker pens for whiteboards. So 3% will always be buying now. They just ran out of markers yesterday. They desperately need some right now. And in fact, can you ship them today? Do you have some samples already with you? And 30%, right at the bottom, will always know they're not interested in buying. And the reason is they either have a preferred vendor, and the preferred vendor is their uncle who owns a marker pen factory. So you will never get that business. Or they could prefer to be buying, just, from, the guy that they've already dealt with for the last 30 years. Or maybe they don't have a whiteboard, they have a chalkboard, or maybe they don't even use whiteboards anymore. Everything is just PowerPoints. So essentially, you would never sell a single product to that category. So moving on from the bottom, 30% will think that they are not interested. And maybe because they've just bought 60 dozen boxes of markers to take advantage of a bulk discount. So they won't be thinking about markers at least for the next 3 years. And 30%, another 30% will always not be thinking about it. Maybe they are just really busy with their work and they don't really actively think about markers because they're just trying to do their own thing and they're trying to get on with their own life. But if you ask them, they might go and check their stock to see whether or not, hey, maybe I need it, maybe I don't need it, but I'm not thinking about it right now. So 6 to 7% realize that their stock is running low. They're requesting for a quotation from several vendors. They are buying, but not necessarily from you. So for every set of traffic that you bring it all into this one pyramid. And realistically, you're able to convert about 1 to 3% naturally without too much marketing effort because, people are buying now, there is always 3% that is buying now. So essentially, at any point in time, it will also be very expensive for you to sell ice to an Eskimo. You will almost never target 60% of your traffic. That's what we call below the iceberg. But the thing is, you can still maybe sell ice to an Eskimo, but you would actually spend a lot of marketing dollars trying to reach this 60% and realize that your conversion rate is only 0.0001%. So it is most effective to actually focus your marketing efforts in reaching the top iceberg, which is the 40%. And when you have fully milked all your traffic, the whole 40% of that traffic, you can then go out and lead generate a new pyramid. So then you can target the next 40% in this new pyramid. So we reach 40% using two techniques. So it's just two. It's story selling, which is what we're going to talk about today. And then education-based marketing, which we're going to do next week in part 2. And if you ask me what's my favorite between the two, I'll tell you it's education-based marketing because story selling is good at bringing the leads in, but it's not that great at converting. So, but we will talk about both because they both have their own kind of like benefits. So in short, what is story selling? So let's illustrate this using a furniture store that just opened on the same day in the same town. So when you step into the first store, the guy says to you, how are you today? What couches are you looking for? Let me show you my best-selling product. It has a recliner, there's this seat, touch this fabric, it's very, very soft. And then, he's talking all about that one product, the sofa, right? That he thinks that it's what you're after. And he tells you what is the wonderful things about this particular sofa. Now, when you step into the second store, however, the guy says, hey, is this your first time in our store? Did you know that, the history of our store is we started in, World War II when all these things were happening and, we were sewing all these fabrics and stuff, for tents and whatnot. And after World War II, we had so much experience with, sewing tents and having this durability in those tents that we realized that we could create very durable fabrics and very durable sofas. And so we started this store. Actually, Granddad started this store. And let me share with you why we have lower prices because, we do this all within our family. We have lower prices than our competitors because, we don't try to, ship all sorts of crazy products from everywhere. We try and make everything ourselves in-house, that kind of stuff, whatever story you're selling, right? And then, this couch that you're looking at right here is actually sewn by the owner's son, Mike. He's actually a quality freak. Look at the quality, look at the detail in this particular thing. Now, when you essentially go to, these two stores, you realize that the first store sold features and the second store connected with you personally through stories. Which experience would you actually remember as a customer? In 2 years, you will not remember a single thing about the product in the green store, but you will always remember that Mike is a quality freak and he sews the couches himself. And, they started because of, World War II and they were sewing tents and they, really had very durable products because of their technique in sewing. And this is the heart of marketing. It's creating an environment for people to buy. And story selling works because it makes people remember your story. So now I'm going to quickly walk through a few cases of story selling being done in the market today. And I'd like you to actually tell me through chat whether or not you think they're selling a product or whether they're selling you a story. And I want you to think about, this type of marketing and just type your answer in the chat box. So let's go to the first one. There's this brochure from this particular agent, about this thing in, Prime District number 5. Is this a story or a product? So very good. This is all product selling. Everybody's saying the same thing. Mindy, Ken, Jason, Ram. So very good. So everyone has the same thing, which is this is selling the product. And I think Tiffany says this is facts. So it could be a fact as well. So story could also be a fact. But product is essentially what this thing is trying to sell. It points you to the property. It points you to the district. And this will only appeal to 1 to 3% of ready buyers. So it's not that it's a bad marketing. It's just that it'll only convert 1 to 3%. You can do a little bit more by just choosing to advertise a little bit differently. So it will only appeal to the 1 to 3% of ready buyers already looking inside that district and already looking for that specific number of bathrooms, that specific number of bedrooms. And then it's like, then they'll be willing to come to you. So let's move on to something else. Is this particular one a product feature or a story feature? So Chris is saying story, T Slim is saying story, Ram and Jamie are saying story. So this is one of those that feels like it is story selling, but actually it is a product feature. Who is the product? Is it the agent or is it the property? In this situation, it's the agent, right? It's not a specific property. So in this situation, it's not much of a story to tell. It tells you about his accolades. It tells you about where he was featured in. It's kind of very testimonial, if you get what I'm saying. So he's saying that I've done this, and I've been welcomed here, and, I teamed up with these number of people. So it's not really a story. It's a mere description of their services and their credibility through testimonials. So my key question here is, will you remember this 3 slides from now? So again, this is something that will only convert 1 to 3% of ready buyers because they're already looking for this type of, agents who are, very credible, who have sold a lot of properties, who've been featured everywhere. So it's still not a story. Now I'm going to ask you about this one. Is this a story or a product? It's a feature about moving up in life, going to richer areas and schools in this area and exclusive country club memberships. It gives you this illusion that this is what you're going to have. And then they feature 4 houses inside this entire ad. And then what they then do is, the 4 houses, they tell you about the actual house. But then they also tell you about the kind of lifestyle that you're going to have inside one of these things. Is this a story or a product feature? So Sue-Ann is saying story, Mindy is saying story, Chris saying story, Hang In is saying story, Lawrence, Richard. Richard is saying story, and Lawrence and Wendy are saying product. And this is very good because it's both. So remember that, they spoke about that 4 houses being featured. That is a product feature. And then the story is how you're going to live, when you basically come into this area. It's private schools, it's exclusive club memberships, and this is that persona and that feel of what you're gonna have, right? And you'll always remember that if you move to this district, then that's the kind of lifestyle that you're gonna have. But this story doesn't pull at your heartstrings. It doesn't reach out of the screen to build a story or a relationship with you, right? So you won't remember it basically after the presentation is over. You might remember that that area might be out of your price range. You might remember that, oh, that area might be something that I want to consider if that's, a school that I wanted my kids to go to. but you will likely only reach the top 2 segments of the pyramid, which means you will not target 1 to 3%, you will target 10%. But there's a whole 40% you can be milking. So why leave money on the table, right? So let's move on to try and see whether or not we can push a little bit more boundaries with our storytelling. So with this, I want to ask you this question, which is this really a story? So I'm going to kind of like illustrate this a little bit more. So this is CeraVe, and this is skincare. So, I mean, skincare is usually advertised for women, but CeraVe wanted to sell skincare to men. So watch this and tell me what you think. Is this a story?
Oh, Juliet, I think
I'm Michael Sarah, and I'm pleased to announce that this is my cream.
Jen, oh, Sue-Ann, you found the sound? Okay.
Yeah, I think
You didn't know?
the video.
Generosity. The truth has been hiding in plain sight. I am Sarah V. Can human skin truly be this moisturized? Oh, wow. Let my cream hydrate you. I like this. Skin. Essential ceramides. Hydration. I'm telling them our story. Sarah V. Developed with Michael Sarah V. That's me. Sarah V.
So now that you've watched this, tell me, does this feel like a story? CJ, why do you think this is a crappy product ad? Well, you were laughing. So Sue-Ann says this is like a comedy, which is very true. This is like, it's funny. It's meant to be funny because it's meant to, really take a dig in the way that, we sell women's care, skincare. Essentially, you'd be right that this is not a story. This is basically, it falls under a category called celebrity endorsement. So I won't talk much about celebrity endorsement because it's not something that, us commoner startups would ever use. But the one thing I would say to you is that you can also use celebrity endorsement if you have a certain social impact element to your business or you stand for a particular cause. So the way that you do this is, say, you are solving some children's poverty thing by selling this particular handbag. And the way you do this is you go and tweet on X, or Twitter. Then you message or you tag a bunch of celebrities who actually believe in these types of causes. And then you ask them, please do us a favor, please retweet. After messaging about 1,000 celebrities, you might actually get 1 or 2 person actually retweeting your cause. Remember that you are also selling an idea. So 1 to 3% of the 1,000 people that you message will usually retweet your cause. And that reach might actually just be worth the effort of trying to reach 1,000 people because the celebrity reach is quite wide. So this is celebrity endorsement. It's not really a story. Do you think that you will remember this at the end of the day? Actually, I think I will, because now every time I see Michael Sarah, I just laugh and I think Sarah V. And previously I didn't even know his name was Michael Sarah, and now I just think, I look at him and I go, oh, this is Michael Sarah, and that is his cream. So it actually has, humor is a very important thing. It may not be your humor, but remember, you are not your market. So I'll talk a little bit about this, but remember that this is not a story. So how much percentage do you think that this will convert? Because it's celebrity endorsement, usually it has a pretty high conversion rate. So I would say that it is still closer to the 40%. But again, this is not a strategy that we would commonly use because, we can't afford celebrity endorsements. So the only way, like I said, is to get retweets from celebrities, and then remember to craft your thing really well. So there are several people, social impact enterprises that does this really, really well. So you can go and follow them and check how they do it actually on Twitter or X. So moving on, this video I'll show you is 100% a story. In this situation, I want you to tell me, what do you remember?
He's saying that he's better than us just because he charges 2%. So let all the consumer judge how good is agent.
Definitely, wholesaler has been garnering a lot of attention lately.
I don't feel like it's the most professional in terms of like what you're saying online. You can get cancelled quite easily, you know.
You come out into the market without any experience, flat a 2% fee on your forehead, and you say you are professional. Does that make any sense to you guys?
So we got a lot of so-called hate comments. But as they say, if there's haters, that means you're doing something right, you know.
My biggest selling point is very simple. My agent fee is 1,999. Okay, you time the GST 2178. So my highest sold HDB 1.31 million. We time 2%, 26,002. You time the GST is 28,558. So you look at the difference. My owner saved 26,000 on this transaction alone. So that is my highest selling point. Okay, I'm Patrick Chi, founder of Home Seller. My age 42, father of 3 sons. I find that for agent to go down every single trip, to and fro may be 1 hour, but the viewing may be 5 minutes. So I just take away the viewing part. The rest of the thing I still provide a full agent services. We give this cost saving back to the seller by not going for the viewing.
You think that real estate agents might not be happy about your flat structure?
I believe so lah. If I manage to go to a certain scale, definitely I'll be affecting a certain percentage of the 2% agent. If you don't innovate and learn as you grow, then I will say that, yeah, high chance of you being kicked out of the real estate industry is very high lah. TikTok is something new to me. I only started in August 2023. Then I have gained so much traction via TikTok.
He did call out one agent for wearing flashy clothes.
Agents trying so hard to justify their high commission. What I realize is they are either driving a Ferrari or they'll be wearing 60K of luxury clothes.
But how you choose to spend your money is up to you.
People online always say that, you pay peanut, you get monkey. We have no motivation to sell high for our seller. One guy say that you pay 1,999, he sell for you 500K. You pay me 2%, I sell for you 550K. The agent only sell a few HDB deals, and then he want to compare to me when I sell 400 plus under CEA record. Then plus I do so many record price. I just find that how can someone be so unreal?
Wholesaler coming in with a flat fee is a disruption where it is actually offering the same product at a lower price that resonates very well with the HDB market. I think that's good for empowering consumers lah.
So I have one case in Bishan, I'll open the door, close the deal, and we sell at a record price. The thing that I can't justify is, every time I go down for the viewing, it's only that 5-minute process. Then I open the door, let the buyers view. This one is a corner unit, this one is facing where, downstairs is the MRT. But all this information, I'm thinking, the buyer know ma.
I've seen him promoting his services online. It's a great service that consumers should be willing to consider if their properties are able to sell for itself. But in other instances whereby the house need a little more work to spruce it up in order to get it ready for sale, especially for good price, in a short time, that model may not necessarily work.
I myself have lost clients before to Patrick. For sure, she asked me, do you think you can come down to meet me in terms of commission? Can you do it at like 1% or something like that? And I told her that, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I've spent $300 to $600 for the video shoot. I spent countless hours doing all the viewings with you, and I know what kind of value I can bring to the table. So when you go on Property Guru, sometimes you will see listings that stand out to you a bit more, something that is more prominent with the agent face and a tagline. Those are turbo boosts. There is a high chance that the buyers will click in to look at your listing. Much higher exposure, I can tell you. If I take 60 days to market a unit, if I turbo all the way, that's 1.2K already.
You know what? Yes.
Yeah, recently got something I need to consult.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so very frustrating because my seller went to go and sell view.
Okay.
Then same problem happened again.
Okay.
The insurance person got us
Okay. Let's discuss with them. Hi guys. Tonggu just now informed me a very interesting thing again. Same thing happened. Our DIY condo buyer went to sell view, and then the agent had to go to Jalan our buyer and get his contact number.
Who is that? Oh, some very famous TikToker.
Yeah. Who? A lot of agents are very hungry right now. The market is slowing down. Please are getting lesser and lesser.
I think we can train another type of agents.
So I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's actually quite long, but tell me as of right now, what is the story? What do you remember? So CK says the fee, the price is very affordable. Commission, says Tiffany. It's not the usual agency model, it's a flat fee. So this is a story of how much he saved his client with a fixed fee structure. And sellers do their own viewings. They know their homes best, and buyers already know this area. And he also sells this story of haters. And then he reminds you that I'm a father of 3 children. And then, all these people are hating on me. But then there was one guy who says, if they're haters, you must be doing something right. Right? And then, he's saying that it's not for everyone. If there's a niche for staging, need for good photos, and to bring out the best attributes of the house, you may still need an agent. So essentially, some sellers are more savvy. They can do everything themselves. Then they should go to home seller. This is story selling at its best because it'll target all 40% of your pyramid, because there is some fear component of this story as well. So you might even reach the 4th segment of the buyer's pyramid. And I'll illustrate this a little bit more later. But now this is home seller, and I want you to look at another person's, another property agent, and his particular type of supposed story selling.
As a customer, we always want to have our life easier.
You say that we peace of mind.
He keep on saying, don't worry, it's gonna work, it's gonna work.
The most important thing is that you have a clear picture. 你在可能开设一个请假表，你马路那里可以后缀吗？
他解释到很清楚。
也不会耽误你的时间。
No, I really don't have to spend my time taking care of the whole transaction. When he explained, he also put himself in our shoes. He did advise me, and he made me calm.
The words that he used calms me down.
He very confident said, you don't worry.
所以他做东西是会比较舒畅哦. Saya dia punya perkara begini terjadi dengan begitu mudah.
It's very smooth like a butter.
So this is the Jeff Tan advertisement. It feels like a story, but it's not really a story. This is a clear situation where Jeff has completely misinterpreted what story selling should be doing, because he's only doing testimonials. This is why choosing a very good marketing agency is very important. And if you get in touch, I can actually recommend you some of the agents that I actually trust. This is not really a story. It feels like just personal testimonials. It's like saying, me, I'm the greatest. This type of self-praise advertising will only reach the top 2 segments. They might reach 10%. And I'll talk a little bit more about self-praise marketing later. So remember, at this point in time, what I want to say to you is that story selling is about going viral. It's about making people want to talk about it, to discuss it. But the most important thing is that it makes people remember. So remember that, basically nobody's going to go to a coffee shop and chat about how great Jeff Tan is, right? So this brings me to the next thing, which is let's go back to the buyer's pyramid. So remember Jeff Tan and his self-praise marketing. This would only result in him achieving a maximum of a 10% maximum conversion. To reach the 3rd and maybe even the 4th segment of the buyer's pyramid, we can use 2 things, which is story selling and education-based marketing. Both will actually get you to the 3rd and 4th segment. But the only difference is that if your title is fear-based and negative, so both are story selling and education-based marketing, remember, but the title is different. So one is negative and one is positive. And if it's negative, you might actually have this element of actually reaching the 4th segment. So remember, it's like saying to you that, hey, check whether the marker pens that you bought, that 60 marker pens that you already bought that you think you won't be buying for the next 3 years, check whether it contains arsenic. And then the guy goes, what? I didn't think that, immediately orders the assistant to go out and throw out all the old ones, and then perhaps they might actually buy from you. So remember that there are fear-based elements that will actually help you to target the 4th segment. And so compared to positive titles will only get you to the 3rd segment. This is called message structuring, and it affects your conversion rates significantly. Now, remember that negative titles let you reach the 4th segment and convert some people there, but you don't want to consistently and constantly use negative selling, because it causes people to associate with your brand negatively. So use this very sparingly. So for example, when your title says 5 ways to save money on agent fees, you might be able to reach 40%. But when you add a fear component to your story or your education, you say how to lose 26,000, more people are willing to listen. So now let me show you a few more examples of storytelling that is not just real estate. So stories don't have to be by real humans. They can also circle around completely fictional characters and outrageous plots. And magic truly happens when you can merge storytelling alongside some kind of education of why your product is great. So I'm going to show you this.
This is where your ice cream comes from. The creamy poop of a mystic unicorn. Totally clean, totally cool, and soft served straight from a sphincter. They're good at pooping. But you know who sucks at pooping? You do. That's because when you sit on a porcelain throne, this muscle gets a kink in the hose and stops the Ben and Jerry's from sliding out smoothly. Is that a problem? I don't know. Are hemorrhoids a problem? Sitting at this angle can cause hemorrhoids, bloating, constipation, and a bundle of other crap. Seriously, unicorn hemorrhoids? The glitter gets everywhere. But what happens when you go from a sit to a squat? Voila, this muscle relaxes and that kink goes away faster than Pegasus laying sweet sherbet dookie. Now your colon's open and ready for battle. That's because our bodies were made to poop in a squat, and now there's a product that lets you squat in your own home. Introducing the Squatty Potty. No, Squatty Potty is not a joke. And yes, it will give you the best poop of your life, guaranteed. I don't just mean you bloated lords and hemorrhoidal ladies. I mean everyone. Kink, unkink. Kink, unkink. It's simple science, really. Can't get the last scoop out of the carton. With the Squatty Potty, you get complete elimination. Spend too much time on the chamber pot. The Squatty Potty makes you go twice as fast or your money back. I scream, you scream, and plop, plop, baby. Maybe you're sore from squeezing out solid globs of Rocky Road. The Squatty Potty gives you a smooth stream of froyo that glides like a virgin swan. Plus, when you're done, it tucks neatly out of sight, thanks to its innovative, patented design. Truly a footstool fit for a constipated king. So, if you're a human being who poops from your butt, click here to order your Squatty Potty today at squattypotty.com. You'll wish you tried it years ago. And if you don't trust a prince, how about your doctor? Duck Tank, HuffPost, NPR, Men's Health, Howard Stern. He poops from his butt. They're all crazy about the Squatty Potty. Not to mention the 2,000 Amazon users who gave the Squatty Potty 5 stars, including the author of this moving haiku.
Oh, Squatty Potty, you fill me with endless joy, yet leave me empty.
So order your Squatty Potty today. I'm not saying it will make your poop as soft as this cookies and cream, but I'm not saying it won't. Squatty Potty, the stool for better stool. Pooping will never be the same. And neither will ice cream. One for you, very good.
So the idea here is to entice people to share and retell the stories, making it go viral. It makes people want to sit there from start all the way to the end and finish the entire thing and really listen to what you have to say more to them. And doing this actually draws even more people into your funnel, especially when they are actually sharing this video to other people because it's so funny and it's so kind of like, you know, it's a story they remember. And essentially, you know, they are also educating you on, you know, kink, unkink, and that's how it works. And that they show you that, you know, the Squatty Potty could go right underneath your toilet bowl. So it's not going to be in the way. And it's also, you know, they put in their testimonials, they put in their Amazon reviews, they put in sort of like, you know, all these people, you know, who are celebrities are also using the Squatty Potty. Remember that when your story makes the product desirable, it actually improves your conversion rate as well. So this is essentially something you would definitely remember even when, you know, this entire session and you might actually be already, you know, just judging by the comments on the chat, I can already tell you that some of you might be thinking about sending this out to, you know, your other friends after this session is over. But so in general, these are the hallmarks of a good story selling. So we can go point by point. So a clear message, extremely clear with a Squatty Potty that, you know, it's kink, unkink, kink, unkink. And then Emotional resonance as well. How do you feel after you were watching it? Were you amused? Did you laugh? Did it make you want to send this to a friend immediately? There's a relatable protagonist, the unicorn is you, right? How many of us knows a person like the unicorn who's having trouble in the toilets, and who needs to poop a little bit quicker, 50 minutes instead of 50 seconds instead of 130 seconds. So also, was it a compelling plot? Was it engaging? Because they didn't show you poop. Showing you poop would be very vulgar almost, but they turned this into a whole idea of ice cream. And at the end of the day, it's compelling. People were engaged and they stayed all the way to the end. That's very, very important. And also, did it have some kind of very visual and auditory element that you will remember? So visual would be basically the ice cream coming out of someone's sphincter. And the auditory part would be, there are certain companies that use, jingles that, once you hear that song, you know exactly the brand. So, Don Don Donkey, for example, uses a very good auditory element to their particular branding. So the key factor to a good story is, does and can your audience retell your story? So storytelling is about two things: being remembered and going viral, making people want to talk about it and also discuss it. So remember, can and does your audience want to retell your story? So I cannot conduct a story selling workshop without bringing out the man who absolutely smashes it. So it's Ryan Reynolds. If you want to follow Ryan Reynolds on YouTube and just watch the way he does advertising, it is really beautiful. What he does very well is two things. Is this thing called fast-vertising, which is he goes and he tags on the latest trends. So if, for example, there are certain videos right now that are just, mimicking what certain MPs are saying, because the trend right now is election. So anyone who has a video that's related to elections will be able to pick up on, the trend, and it's essentially fast-vertising. So there are two things he does very well: fast-vertising and also collaborations. So he does a lot of collabs. So if you are subscribed to his channel, you would see how he does advertising extremely well by partnering with other people. So for us commoners, commoner startups, to sell a story, we can also collaborate with partners. So let me just show you this video quickly first, so you have an idea of what partnership and collabs on videos look like.
Hey everyone, Ryan and I recently called it a truce in our social media war, and we promised to make ads for each other.
Yeah, we sure did. I've been working 24/7 on an ad for Hugh's incredible coffee company, Laughing Man, and he's been working hard 24/7, I imagine, on a aviation gin ad. So I'm gonna go first. Let's roll it.
Can't wait.
Can a cup of coffee be a superhero? Because Laughing Man beans are born with a special power. Sure, it's the best tasting coffee in the market. Yeah. It awakens your senses with unbelievable flavor, but it also lifts up communities around the world in the form of housing and scholarships. And Hugh could be behind such a heroic company. Hugh guessed it. My friend, Hugh Jackman, the loving and caring man who created Laughing Man. Make every cup count.
Wow. Wow, man, that's really professional. It's like
Cost $1 million.
Really? Wow. I'm not quite ready to show mine yet, but let's just cut for a second. No, it's not almost finished. Just some color correcting.
For a second, let's just roll it. Come on, I can't wait to see it. Go, roll it.
Ryan Reynolds is a complete and total. Gin's pretty great, though. I'll have to try it someday. I think the truce was actually real. Oh. So how do I like that? And the kids.
So basically, Wolverine, who is Hugh Jackman, owns Laughing Man Coffee. Deadpool, who is Ryan Reynolds, owns Aviation Gin. When they started this particular video, that was when Deadpool versus Wolverine was coming out. So it was basically fast advertising. And then they collaborated between the two and came through this whole story about how Deadpool and Wolverine are always fighting each other. So, you know, basically they continue that banter from Deadpool versus Wolverine into their real lives. And they created a whole compelling story for the two companies in one single ad. Already there were a lot of prior ads where they were constantly sabotaging each other's companies and each other's ads. You can actually kind of follow through that whole storyline, and which is why this makes for a good story, because it makes people excited. They make people think, you know, what is the next ad that's going to come out where they're just playing tricks on each other. So if you run a business, find out who is a potential partner who goes for the same target audience. So in this case, remember that Aviation Gin and Laughing Man Coffee are going for the same posh young audience, slightly, you know, middle upper class kind of, you know, group. And essentially that kind of collaborations are the best because they go after the same target audience. So partner up with someone who's a potential partner that goes with the same audience, and then partner up, co-create that content. So if you are, say, a tuition center, find out who's also targeting older parents, but who are not your direct competitors. So for example, if you're only teaching math, you might want to find someone who's teaching only English. And then you might want to find another tuition center that only teaches science. And then you can even just create a content that says jack of all trades, master of none, and really bang on that, you know, jack of all trades, master of none, saying that, you know, always send your child to a specialist tuition center. And then you can have a character, say Jack, you know, struggling in all his subjects and finding, you know, the 3 masters in this particular thing. So you can really create, you know, very powerful stories that make people want to follow, makes people want to laugh. And you can also even collaborate with existing content already on the market. So you can just pick up on quotes from movies and then, you know, just have the guy, you know, talking about your brand or whatever, and make it look like they're talking about your brand, but actually they're just talking quotes about something else. Or like I said, you know, with the current elections, we have a lot of MPs coming out to speak. You can pull quotes from those MPs and then relate it down to your brand. So you can see a lot of YouTube videos out there that currently does this, and actually does this very, very well. So just pick up quotes from people who are someone famous, and then have a split, you know, window, even if you just, you know, nodding your head going, I agree. And then at the end of the day go, hey, I really believe in this, you know, this is the ethos of, you know, Made Without Borders, blah, blah, blah. And then you can kind of like tie in with your branding. So story selling works, and story selling with partnerships are even more powerful because you're tagging off each other's audience, and then you're kind of really building up a whole following. So when you tie your stories to your target audience's identity, which means the protagonist, the hero, is someone that is you, right? Then it is often even more powerful. So if your target audience can see themselves as one of the characters of the story, then you will 100% have won that extra click. So let me show you how this is a really good storytelling. And actually HSBC does a very good job with storytelling. So I'm going to play this right now.
Oh yeah.
The English believe it's a slur on your host's food if you don't clear your plate. Whereas the Chinese feel you're questioning their generosity if you do. At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge. Which is why we have local banks staffed by local people in over 80 countries across the globe.
Okay.
HSBC, world's local bank.
So, like I said, if your target audience can actually relate to it, because HSBC is wealth management and, they're trying to, talk about culture and, they're trying to open up that markets to, global wealth management. This is something that, I thought was very funny, very relatable, and then people would actually bother to share and send. So Jeremy, yeah, I don't think he's finishing that last one either. So you're looking at all these stories right now and you're like, my God, it's really long. Some of these videos are ultra long. I mean, the home seller one was ridiculously long, right? It's almost, 30 minutes, I think. But here is one where I can tell you, stories don't need to be long-winded. In fact, it is better if your stories so if you're doing lead generation, YouTube Shorts are where you want to be. And YouTube Shorts will feature you if you're under 30 seconds. So really keep this to under 30 seconds. And so if you want to do lead generation as the basic strategy, so some stories can be ultra short and yet powerful in its message. So this is one about English.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät, Überlebensradar.
Hello, can you hear us? Can you? Yeah, over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
So this is just one about, you better learn English. Otherwise, basically, if someone's trying to tell you something and you misinterpret it, and, this is something that got shared multiple times on multiple channels, and, it's really, really powerful. And this is about a learning language called Berlitz. So now tell me, how much do you think the previous videos actually cost to make? Do you think it's hundreds of thousands? Is it millions? So if you think about it, at Made Without Borders, we're actually a social enterprise. We're not having that much of a huge marketing budget that we can actually just throw away, So let me show you an example of a low budget production meant to drive leads.
Incredulous experience with a maid agency. New to Bangalore and were struggling to find a full-time maid. We're referred to an agency by our neighbor, which asked to pay upfront to let us interview maids. Of course, we paid as they were recommended. My wife was doing the entire coordination with the agency. After a lot of back and forth more than a month, agency started providing her decent profiles. She selected one of them immediately to start on the 2nd of November. The brief time I met the maid, she was incredibly nice, friendly and knew housework. Overall, wifey was quite happy. Agency asked her to sign the contract and make an advance payment of 20K. She in turn wanted to discuss it out with me before paying and promised the agency to pay by end of day. Somehow with my late evening meetings and other stuff, we did not manage to discuss and both slept off. Today morning she wakes up. 157 missed calls between 12 to 2 a.m. and to the agency. Owner standing outside the society, trying to get in, thank God for the security. We used to say we were shocked. When she called him, he kept shouting at her for money to be paid. She calmly told him he will be paid in some time after she finished a few meetings in the morning. In some time we find that the maid has left taking with her all toiletries, essentials we had provided her, and copies of her Aadhaar and photo. God knows how she knew where they were. And the agency owner gloating to my wife over messages that the maid is back to him. The entire episode has left us shocked. I have no clue why the guy was being so pushy to be paid, especially when we were so accommodating when waiting for him to provide a maid. What's more shocking is 157 calls at midnight. Not sure if I should feel sad for his mental health or feel blessed that we saw his true colors this early. There are maid agencies. I would assume agency would be run by some shady broker who takes a huge cut of the payment, and God knows how he procures and keeps the labor. By __Dragoon_. Better not to employ maids via any external agency. We asked around in our area, inquired with some vegetable vendors, and found a maid working few houses in our area. Found her suitable and employed her. By Nandi_J.
So we had a
Where do you
very,
guys find maids? I have had so many bad experiences.
so without any ad budget at all and only one amazing marketing staff, we started our YouTube, TikTok, and LinkedIn channels. We had a very clear strategy. So first, to seed the channels with videos of varying content. So we had cooking tutorials for maids. We had cleaning tutorials for maids. We also taught people how to watch for maid scams online. And then we had this particular series called Reddit Horror Stories. So with each content, we then look at who we were reaching, because YouTube has an analytics page that you could basically look at. And then we started to understand which types of video had the most traction. So our app is basically still in coding, so it's not ready for launch yet. So we're not after sales conversions right now. So right now we're seeking a different type of call to action. And our objective is just branding. At the end of each cooking video or at the end of, every video, like even for this one, we basically have a call to action that is just ending with our call message, which says, no more agents, cheaper, better,
I are expecting
faster.
a child and need a dependent.
And so people know who we are, but we also have a secondary call to action for some videos. So for example, the cooking videos, we ask people to share what they wish their helpers can cook, or, we ask whether they could contribute some of their own recipes for our online thing. And when we post these recipes, we tag the contributor. And then what this does is magic. It's like these folks will be sharing your video on every channel that they have, because essentially they are featured inside this particular video and they are very proud of their own work. And when they start sharing your video with their networks, this allows us to borrow the contributors' credibility. And now we look like we've been referred by them. So this particular video has been bringing us about 1,000 signups to our website every single week with 0 ads and only 1 staff. The key here is to post on LinkedIn 3 videos a week, at least. We haven't even launched yet. We've already accumulated more than 60,000 people into our funnel in 2 months without ads. So now that we know which content is working and which content isn't, when we are finally launching our app, we're just going to put money into those particular ones with traction, and then we will push, advertising dollars into it and just multiply the ROI from there. So the point I'm trying to make here is when you start your strategy, you don't have the data yet to help you figure out what types of video is working with your target audience and what's not working. So what is important? Step 1 is to mimic your competitors. What are your competitors doing? Figure out which ones are the ones that are sticking with your competitors' audience, because you can see the view, and create a few videos of each different types of variety so you know what sticks and what doesn't. What is important here, I think Sue Ann basically made a comment earlier, which is it's too American, right? The Ryan Reynolds, the Deadpool versus Wolverine one, it's too American, it won't work in Asia. And the point I'm making here is don't let your perception of what you think is good or bad determine what you actually put out. Some of you may have looked at the previous video and went, oh, this is so AI, and goodness, Reddit stories. And then you judge, and it's rightfully so, because I judged, because I was like, hey, do I really want this fake AI thing for my branding? But that video turned out to be one of our highest conversion rates. So what I'm saying to you is don't judge. Try a good variety of videos, because you are not your target audience. See what sticks, and it may not be what you like, but as long as your market likes it, that's money. Don't say no to it. So through the Reddit horror stories series, we actually figured out that people actually wanted to find out more about other people's horror stories. So we had a very good end goal in mind. So use the Reddit story first to kind of seed the channel and ask people to contribute their stories. So at the end of every video for Reddit, we would have a call to action also asking people to share with us their real stories. And this is the result of one of those stories about maid replacement fees through Ray.
The 600 replacement fee comes with miscellaneous costs to us and the replacement. I think that was where the second horror starts, right? Whereby in the contract, it clearly says that there is 2 free replacement within 6 months. Even though there's free replacement, it comes with a replacement fee. Contract clearly put 2 free replacement, but then there's a small clause that says the replacement fee applies of $600, right? So I agreed and all, and then I started interviewing some of the maids and all. And when I wanted to confirm one of it, to my horror, the 600 replacement fee comes with miscellaneous costs as well, which is another $700. So that adds up to $1,000 just to replace a maid, which doesn't make sense.
So the key point I want to share with you here is don't be too sure about what content will work with your audience or not. Just start. Just seed your channel with anything that you believe could have worked for your competitors. And then after that, use the data collected to figure out what strategy you want to actually focus on. So if later on say the Reddit stories were not really working very well, just delete it from your channel. You know, if it's only like 5 views anyway, or only 50 views anyway, you don't really care. So don't worry that the first few ideas are crappy. Just focus on getting better with the data feedback, keep refining, and then you will get better. Don't push big budgets until you know what is working and what is gaining traction and not. So test with like, you know, just $200 here and $200 there. And then when your $200 becomes only $300, you know, in ROI, maybe that's not a good ad to push. If your $200 is pushing $2,000 worth of profit, then yes, step up the ad budgeting for that particular ad until you start hitting diminishing returns. So this is how you test how different types of videos are actually working on story selling or education-based marketing. So this is another, so basically it's Su Yan was talking about, hey, how about text stories? And Wendy was like, what about LinkedIn? Yes, story selling doesn't have to be just videos. Even though it is easier to tell a story through a video. I've done a lot of examples of, you know, B2C content. So I want to talk a little bit about how B2B basically does it. So you can sell a story on LinkedIn as well, or at events where you are actually the speaker. You can tell your own personal story of, you know, oh, this is, you know, the journey that I walked through. This is why I started Made Without Borders, because of all the difficulties that I had with my agents. So you can sell a story and people will remember those stories. You use a story to create a persona with a very specific call to action. So for B2B businesses, what is helpful is when you use your client's story. And this is, you know, basically where they were before you came along and where they are right now. Now, but please do not turn this into a client testimony, because client testimony, as I've said over and over and over again with Jeff Tan, for example, that is not a story. People don't remember client testimony because you talk about how great you are and nobody cares. So this is the client's struggles. It's the client's attempts to solve their own problems unsuccessfully. And it's only when the client finally found the solution to their problem, which is you, and then you talk about how you then went about creating step 1, step 2, step 3 to basically help the client. And then you write regular posts about the industry inside stories. You know, you can say the behind the scenes, what is happening, you know, during the trade show or the trade events and stuff. Or you can talk about inspiring stories of your client's transformation, or you can talk about why you do the things that you do. The why part of any story is very powerful on LinkedIn. Actually, those are the ones that actually drive a lot of the, you know, the stuff. And you can see on LinkedIn, people are putting up, you know, their kids' photos, their kids' videos and whatever not. And you can do this, but I say, please do it very sparingly, because yes, your personal story is important. But then there are a certain part of LinkedIn that actually doesn't want to push content with too much children inside it, because in some sense, that is not seen as professional content. So LinkedIn doesn't like to push that kind of content. So you can do it once or twice just to, you know, build up the story about who you are and, you know, how your struggles as a dad, you know, caused you to create this business around, you know, selling kids' clothing and things like that. You can do things like that, but remember that it has to be like very story-like. So someone that does this actually very well is actually Sam Neill. So he's a personal branding instructor, and actually I put a couple of his courses inside my link tree as well, because I highly recommend him for anyone looking into personal branding. And in there, he, you know, his types of stories that he sells is, you know, he asks you questions like, do you feel isolated on your, you know, entrepreneurial journey? And then he shares stories about other people who also has this problem of, you know, feeling very alone on an entrepreneurial journey. And then he talks about, you know, some of the things that he does to not get there. And also it's like, you know, he talks about a client who's struggling to make enough, you know, monthly revenue because they're getting a lot of likes, but they're not converting the likes to money, right? To revenue. So then Sam talks about how to convert, you know, from likes to revenue in that particular story for that particular client. So what you want to do is to just constantly write regular posts about your insight stories in your industry, talk about your client's transformation. LinkedIn also allows videos. So LinkedIn, in fact, if you do the carousel format and if you do the text and photo format and also the videos format, those are the ones that actually trend the most. So this is the way that you want to sell on a B2B kind of thing. You can also, if you're thinking and if you have a lot of fear behind kind of using videos because you don't have the expertise to do video, you can just use like Fiverr or, some kind of like Indian virtual assistants. I can actually put up those links if you basically get back to me on LinkedIn. I can send you some of these guys that are actually quite cheap and they can do video production work for you for like, 300-400 per month. But of course, maybe that's 5 video productions or 6 video productions. So it depends on the length as well. So in general, do note that story selling is not just online. So you can also do this at trade shows as a speaker, brochures that you give out, like physical leaflets and brochures. And I mean, I once heard someone speak about this topic at the Natural Disasters Expo, where he spoke about how he broke his leg skiing and how he almost died because he couldn't reach anybody. And now he's created a tracking device for like high impact sports for disaster relief as well. And it sticks because 5 years later, I still remember him. I still remember that there is this tracking device that one day if my kids got into high impact sports and stuff, that would be something I would definitely be buying. Because, he just spent almost half an hour talking about how he could see the bones sticking out of his skin and he showed us photos of it and it was very visual and it was a powerful story. And the why, like I said, explain the why part of the component and why it makes very beautiful stories. So remember that it all boils down to understanding your traffic, conversion rates, average order value, and also the lifetime value of a customer. An elite sales closer is someone who is focused on data collection to refine those 4 factors to enable you to actually make data-driven decisions. So what are some of the things that you want to collect? So basic demographic data. By collecting this, age, contact information, gender, profession, where they live, you start finding buying patterns in order to segment your marketing material better. So if a mother tends to buy a particular set of products while dads are buying another particular set of products, then create relevant content for each type of buyer persona. And if there is product relevancy, there is less chance that your content is perceived as spam and then is deleted or it's skipped. So remember that product relevancy is extremely important, and you do this by collecting data. And referral sources is also very important. So you want to know which of your marketing initiatives is the one that is producing the ROI. You need to know how your customers are finding you. And then you find ways to increase your reach on that channel. So if parenting blogs are the ones that are bringing in the highest traffic and conversion, then focus your advertising dollar on finding more parenting blog sites. So you want to spend your advertising dollars in putting up, ads inside some of these parenting blog sites in order to get you one article that you can write about, your how great your parenting website is. And if certain age group tends to be the ones referring you, focus your marketing to reach that age group. Remember, you are not your target audience. So if teenagers are the ones reaching out, and actually trying to buy your product, then don't make the marketing something about things that you like. So remember, you are not your target audience. The teenagers are. So for behavioral data, it's one of the most effective ways to gain insights to your sales strategy is actually collecting data about your customer behavior. And that is before, during, and after a sale. So it could include things like, but it's not limited to bounce rates, site traffic, cart abandonment, at what point they abandon the cart actually, reviews and ratings and purchasing data, so on and so forth. The more information you have about the customer behavior, the more equipped you'll be to map out an understanding of the buyer journey. So if there's a certain page in which in your website where you realize people drop out at that page, every time they hit that page, they drop out. You better figure out why they're dropping out at that page, and you better find out very, very fast. So content performance is also something that you want to collect to find out how to improve your sales. So you want to track views, you want to track downloads, you want to track social engagement, and so on and so forth. Who is sharing, how often they're sharing, and things like that. And the way that you do this is, you know, your customers' interest, values, content preferences, and needs. And that can provide you with the invaluable data when it comes to refining your strategies. So what you want to focus on here is where you are getting the highest conversion dollar. Do not focus on pushing content that gets you the most views and likes, but that drives absolutely no sales. So, you know, the thing that Sam was talking about, you know, there are these clients of his that have all these likes, but they get no sales because they're pushing the wrong content. So then transaction history. Tracking customer transaction is a very effective way to gain insights into purchasing patterns and also to provide personalization and recommendations that can lead to more sales. So this data could include the products or services currently in the basket, but is not yet purchased, the timing of said purchases. So is it only during certain holidays, or the frequency of purchasing habits? So I don't know whether you know about Amazon. Whenever you buy things on Amazon, they always go like, you know, customers who bought this also bought, and then they show you what the associated products, you know, customers that bought a mattress also bought bed sheets, also bought pillows, also bought whatever, right? And then it makes you click and click and click and keep adding more and more things into the basket. So these kind of simple bits of information, after you collect them, that's all you need to learn about, you know, what triggers a purchase, and then to create marketing materials that triggers those purchases, and where, and then also to kind of place the customer in where, you know, you think of a buying stage they are at, the sales funnel. And one last thing, which is why customers leave. And, you know, you might wonder, why is this data important? I mean, if the customer has already stopped using your products, then why do you want to invest any more time in them? Well, here's why, because, you know, understanding why people are leaving can help you to reduce churn, and, you know, it can help your business actually improve. So if you do decide to collect this information, make sure that you're open and you're receptive to it. Don't get defensive and start writing off, you know, dissatisfied customers as, you know, that guy's just an idiot. It doesn't create better sales strategy. There are plenty of CRM tools out there that can facilitate this kinds of data collection. Just look for this feature called sales enablement. So let's look at a typical campaign journey. So my objective is to never target the bottom 60% of the buyers in the buyer's pyramid. So essentially, you can still sell ice to an Eskimo, but the amount of marketing dollars that you will need to use to get that sale is actually not worth the ROI. So what I do is I focus on only hitting the top 3 segments, which is just achieving 40% of the conversion rates. And then I learned to live with the fact that I will hardly reach the 60%. And it's fine, I'll live with it, right? So say I spend $20,000 on a $5 pay-per-click Facebook campaign to make them subscribe to my Facebook channel. I would have 4,000 subscribers to my channel. So say I'm Jeff Tan and I went out and I went to use my self-praise marketing, demonstrate how great I am, you know, and I go me. Of these 4,000 people that I'm able to bring into this funnel, a maximum of 10% would buy, meaning at most 400 buyers will leave Facebook, come to my website, and actually click to purchase something. So I spent $20,000 to acquire 400 clients. This means that my buyers need to buy an average basket value of more than $50 for me to break even on the 20,000 marketing dollars that I have spent. This is why most self-praise ad campaigns don't actually create very effective ROIs. So let's do it differently this time using a second ad strategy. Let's spend another $20,000, this time with some story selling element, to try to reach 40% of my funnel. But I don't reach the full 40% because, you know, the third segment is very hard to reach. Let's say I only manage about 25%. This means I've acquired 1,000 clients, which is not bad. So as long as the buyers spend more than $20 each, I would have broken even on my 20,000 ad spend. So what do I do from here? I have 3 options to proceed to get more sales. So the sales amateur would then go out and say, I need more sales, right? So the sales amateur will go out, spend another 20,000, generate a whole new triangle. It's a very expensive strategy. But the elite sales closer will actually focus on milking the previous funnel first before giving up and then starting a new funnel. So remember that we have only reached 25%, not the full 40%. So what you would use is either AOV or LTV strategies to basically target the remaining 15%. Because if you use things like product bundling, if you use things like promotions, loyalty rewards points, what you can do is actually fatten the funnel, because you say that, hey, I have this, referral program where if you refer someone, I'll give you a $20 voucher. I'll give you both a $20 voucher. Then suddenly your friends are bringing in other friends. Your funnel just fatten itself, right? So they could also use AI sales follow-up tools to basically help them get them there. So I'll show you more about Exabloom when we speak about common AI tools in part 3 of this series that would be actually quite helpful for sales and marketing. Much cheaper than a new 20K ad strategy, because like I said, lead generation is very expensive. Someone who's a good elite sales closer will understand that your strategy should not be fully on lead generation. You only go to that as a last resort after you've fully milked out your funnel. So for AI sales reactivation, you can convert dead leads to sales, and they will only charge you for those that they were actually able to convert. So in general, if you had spent 20,000 on an ad campaign already, so then Exabloom can probably reach the same conversions with just 1,000 to 3,000, not 20K. So I'll talk more about the services by Exabloom. I love Exabloom because you're only charged on the leads that you do convert. So if they don't convert anything for you, you don't pay anything. So there's no real loss. So in short, the elite sales closer takes a holistic approach to sales and marketing. They understand that sales is a numbers game. They use marketing to bring people into their funnels. And then once they've generated those leads, they use story selling or education-based marketing to reach a higher baseline conversion. They then keep milking that funnel before they then go out and start a new ad campaign to bring in a new set of leads. Now, when do you kind of stop milking that existing funnel? I keep saying, don't try and hit 100% conversion, right? You will never get there. Don't try and hit the bottom 60% of your funnel. When you have achieved 40% conversion on these leads, move on and then go to your next traffic. So we can speak more about education-based marketing next week, which is actually my preferred strategy. That will be in part 2, and it's actually very, very, very effective. So before I end today's session, I'd like you to remember this quote. Sales is like cooking. There's generally a recipe. The more you cook, the more you adapt to preferences and kind of learn other people's preferences, the better you will get. So the important thing is just get started and then just ebb and flow with the data that you receive. And that would be the elite sales closer. So I've come to the end of today's session. If you want to find out more about kind of the entrepreneurship courses that I teach, or if you need some startup advice, or if you think we can partner up on a business together, get in touch. Or if you want to bring me in as a consultant for your business, let's have a talk. And if you have more questions about this talk, just run your questions on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to speak to you about it. So you can scan this link tree and it will take you to a whole list of links, including the part 2, part 3, and part 4 of this particular series. So if you haven't registered for it, those links are in there. And then basically, if you're a chronic patient struggling with your condition, I'm a professional patient by now with 3 chronic illnesses, let's have coffee, let's talk. And also, if you want referral to kind of like cheap marketing agencies or, video production agencies, or, basically Exabloom, I have included the websites in my link tree for Studio 20 and also Exabloom. But if you want a direct handshake, and a direct intro, just, send me a text. If you want to be very well taken care of, I can introduce you to the managers directly. So just connect with me on LinkedIn and kind of tell me what you hope to achieve. And then I will see who is the best person to direct you to. Also, if you want to be part of the Telegram Changemakers group, do join the Telegram group. Again, the link is also inside the link tree. Do join, be aware of events that's happening in entrepreneurship, training events and stuff. And you can also introduce yourself into this group and you can share your events for your business. All the links are listed in the link tree. on the QR code, or I think Jen can also drop the clickable link in the chat. If you are looking for maids and want to hire them directly without agents, you can also basically click on the links in the link tree, and we'll let you know when we finally launch, and we'll send you a golden voucher. Or if you want, training videos for your helper, cooking, cleaning, that kind of stuff, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channels. Finally, there are 2 feedback forms to fill out. If you fill out my feedback form, I will send you a copy of this slide summary, but also don't forget to fill out the NLB feedback form and give me 5 stars if you want NLB to come back and teach you more. Before I end, I just wanted to drive home one final point. There are many types of stories that you can share. A good type of story is, a few good suggested, ideas of where, which direction you can take is you can even talk about a book you've read and how it applies to your industry and your product. You can even talk about your experiences of starting out the business, and then you can talk about your client's struggle. A few ideas would be, I have a few ideas on how to elevate our industry or how to elevate our products. What do you think of my new ideas, right? And to ask people for their opinions. You can create a what if series, and then have a conversation and create a whole story around that conversation. And then you can also create kind of stories around a new framework that you had invented and why you came up with that framework. You can also talk about something that your competitor did, but be very careful not to kick down your competitor, because you will invite retaliation. So anyone with questions right now, do type into the chat box, unmute yourself, switch on your video, and let's begin Q&A.
I've given everyone the ability to unmute, so you can go ahead and do that if you wish to. Juliet, there were a few questions in the chat already, so as the session went on, so maybe we can start with addressing those first.
Okay.
Actually,
Jen, would you be able to help me get to those questions quickly?
Yeah, sure, no worries, no worries. Actually, okay, hang on.
Okay. I'll start from the bottom. Bloom, is it for Singapore market? Grace, so there's only 2 companies that does AI sales reactivation. One is based in the US, and actually one is based here in Singapore. So yes, Bloom is for the Singapore market. Right now, they are conquering all the, the WhatsApp kind of follow-ups for a lot of the education and tuition enrichment centers. So I think they have very, very big markets here in Singapore already, and always looking to expand. So if this is something that you're interested in, send me a message on LinkedIn, and then I'll get you connected with the other people. The AI tool is Bloom. I will show you the video of how Bloom actually works in part 3 when we talk about AI tools. So remember to attend part 3 if you want to see how this basically works. Please share examples from service companies, not just products. Do you think that you could give me an example of your service company, and maybe we can all kind of brainstorm right now to see whether or not we can come up with some ideas that are, useful for your particular thing. But I have taken note of this, and then in my future sessions, I will do more service as well.
I think someone was also asking about, this was way in the AI tool was way in the beginning of your presentation. I think you might have been referring to an AI tool for sales. Yeah.
Can I flash the buyers slide after the sales funnel? Hey, let's go. No, I've gone too far. This one? No. Okay, no, I think I know what you're talking about. This one? Okay. So any other questions? You can also unmute yourself and kind of talk to me about it. So from Heng Wei Mei, would you start with marketing or sales for a possibly dying industry of mama shops or provision shops? So I think this is a situation of really understanding who your end customers are. So who are the end customers that still uses mama shops or provision shops? So I would think that a lot of these people, it's what we call proximity clients, you know, people that live very, very near that mama shop, and it's basically convenience, right? So I would start with marketing for sure. This is also kind of like something that you can do as an influencer to, you know, create you can create some very, very good kind of like push for, you know, association of mama tiam, you know, or association of provision shops, and then get a few uncles to come out and talk about their shops and say, come and visit our shop. My shop is located at this, whatever location. And then, you know, and just have like a few of these uncles and aunties sitting in a round table, you know, like looking like they're very seriously discussing, like creating this trade association for, you know, mama shops and stuff like that. And I think those things will go actually very, very viral. And you would start creating new demand that is outside of proximity buyers. And you might actually get people traveling to, you know, from one HDB shop to another. Of course, it's all about branding. And I'm not, to be fair, this is not my target thing. I don't personally go to a mama tiam. And I think maybe I did that, you know, when I was very young. And so maybe you could also use the whole story of how, you know, it is a dying trade, and that you're very sad and you're trying to save the last few mama tiam, and you're encouraging people to go to it, and you're encouraging people to tell stories of the mama tiam that they went to when they were children, and what are the things that they buy from there, and, you know, just do a whole story about, you know, recalling your childhood. And I think you can really create some very good videos around there. I'm not sure whether or not I got to the actual answering of this question, Hui Mei, but, you know, if there's any other questions that you have following from here, that would be great to just type it in. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Shi-en, can you share work about patient advocacy? Oh, I'm happy to do so, but probably not in this particular session. Get in touch with me on LinkedIn, and then let's go out and drink some coffee. I've been doing a lot of kind of like, you know, talking about, you know, the costs of, you know, MediShield Life, MediSave. I've been talking about, you know, patient technologies in Singapore. We're very far behind in technology in Singapore. I put that all on my LinkedIn, and then I get involved in a lot of, you know, championing for more technology to come in, and, you know, more subsidies for patients, and you know, a lot of patient support groups. So just go ahead and get in touch with me. I also do a lot of like finding patients for clinical trials, and trying to advance medical innovation. So Auntie Lala, what strategies would you apply for companies doing lending service? So Auntie Lala, I have a question for you. Who are your ideal client profile? What are these types of people that tend to need lending services? So SMEs, okay. So when you're talking about SMEs, so it's corporate lending? Yes. Okay. So how about some of us give Auntie Lala some, let's crowdsource this entire thing. You know, you have attended my class by now. Let's hope some of that stuck, and let's kind of like crowdsource for lending services for SMEs. Auntie Lala, are you a bank? Or are you a venture capitalist? What kind of debt are we talking about? And what's the quantum of lending? Kelly, the link to the feedback form is actually in the link tree. It's one of the things that you can click on. It says feedback form. So until unsecured working capital, 1 to 3 years. So what makes you different from your competitors? And who tends to be the decision makers in those SMEs? What departments? Okay, well, Auntie Lala is typing. I wanted to just make sure that I'm getting more of these. Oh, Wendy, thank you for championing healthcare. Oh, I hope Wendy, let's do this together. How about that? Gary, thank you as well. Would there be more content focusing on B2B marketing or sales in future sessions? So, Jia Cheng, so the reason why story selling was very dominant for B2C is because that's what works for B2C. What works for B2B is education-based marketing. So this is the one that we're going to talk a lot of. So today's B2B one, I literally only have one slide because most B2B people don't really use story selling. They might basically have that in their portfolio of marketing tools, maybe only about 1 to 5%. You won't see too much story selling for B2B. For B2B, a lot of that is education-based marketing. So don't miss out next week's session. So Jamie says, I'm a content creator on TikTok and I've been gaining a good grasp of marketing as a creator on TikTok. But as someone who manages social media for brands too, I realized that marketing as a creator and as a business is somewhat different. I would love to learn more about it and hear your insights on differences and how to better target audiences for business. That's the whole problem. When you go to TikTok and then you say that you are an individual and you register for an individual account versus you register for a business account, you're going to realize that the traction is completely different. So you post the same video. So test it actually, Jamie. You post the same video on the personal account and the business account, and you're going to realize that the business account will get 50 views and the personal account will hit 20,000 views. And the reason for this is because TikTok rigged the algorithm. They expect that if you have a business account, that you will essentially spend the money to essentially do ads. So they will not push your content organically, whereas they will push the person's content organically. So this is the problem with TikTok. So how you can circumvent this is that you don't push the business for a small SME, push the founder's account. And then what you can do is that you put it on the founder's account, and then the business would retweet or repost the same content to the business account. So you're using it as a placeholder, and you're using the founder's name, and then the founder's name bracket the business name, and you're pushing the founder's account. So personal accounts will get significantly more traction. That's a TikTok problem that I've heard. And then if you want to sort of use ads, what you can do as well is for TikTok, I have I think like a free credits for $500 or $100. I can't remember. It's on my entrepreneurs toolkit, so I can send that to you as well. So just email me on or LinkedIn, message me, and then I will send you the free TikTok credits that you can then use to basically seed the first set of your business TikTok. But yeah, business TikTok, it will never organically be logically pushed. Use your founder's account to push because you will get significantly more views. So Auntie Lala, back to you. We are a non-bank. We are flexible in terms of lending, unlike banks. So the lending parameters and systems. So perfect. You've already described what makes you different. So don't forget to attend next week's session. So I will take into account your comments, and then I will try to target that next week as well, Auntie Lala, with respect to sort of like how do we use education-based marketing? Because for your system, story-based type stuff is not really the way to go. You can find like a client story, like, basically get your clients to talk about how difficult it was to basically find, borrow money on, basically traditional traditional banks and stuff, how difficult it was and how much fees they were charging, and be very specific on the details. And then say how they managed to come to you, what makes, you know, why they ended up choosing you instead of your competitors and stuff like that. Client stories will work for you in terms of story, but a huge percentage of what you will then be doing is actually education-based marketing, where you are going, this is what makes us different from traditional banks. That's one education piece. This is what makes us different from our competitors who are non-bank equivalents. And this is why you borrow from us, because, you know, you're either, you know, so for example, for Made Without Borders, we say we're cheaper, better, faster. What is your tagline? So I would ask you that next week. Jia Cheng, does it work similar in LinkedIn? What works similar in LinkedIn? Can you elaborate a little bit further, please? Suyan, will you repeat your future workshops? Unfortunately, Jen, that might be a question for you. I think this would be the last of the Elite Sales Closer for this year, right? Because I think we'll be focusing on Good
It might
Boss
be
versus Bad
cycling,
Boss.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think we may repeat this next year, maybe.
Yeah,
Jen?
maybe probably next year. We'll try, because we do try to keep like a good spread of topics and not like continuously repeat.
Yeah. So I would say,
yeah.
Suyan, try to get someone to attend on your behalf and take notes or something. But, you know, I think that it is important that even if you're in a meeting, just have an earpiece on your ear and try not to miss this one, because the next one is going to be the most powerful marketing tool. Like education-based marketing, by far, hands down, is the best marketing tool anyone can adopt. So Jia Cheng, compared to business versus founder on TikTok. Oh, so is it the same for LinkedIn? Yes. So with most platforms, and the worst one is Facebook, anything meta related. So like for Facebook, for Instagram, if you have a business account versus a founder's account, it is extremely different. The views that you see, and I say to you, test it, because just do the same video, launch it together, and see what the tractions are. And then you're going to realize that which platform will push a business one more. So increasingly for Made Without Borders, for example, we do have Made Without Borders still texting their own stuff, and then I text my own stuff. And then once in a while, for certain key ones, I'll repost my Made Without Borders LinkedIn posts. And then that way, that I will use that to borrow the traction, right? So that it can go viral on my personal page. But usually it is better if you do it on the founder's page, and the person that reposts is actually the business. So the business will look like they have a lot of reposts, but unfortunately, that's the cheap way to do it. I mean, if you have money, just push the ads, you know, so don't worry about it. But it's the same for LinkedIn. It is probably LinkedIn is probably as bad as Meta. Actually, TikTok is already not that bad. They will still push company views to maybe about 500 before it caps out. By far, only TikTok and YouTube are still pushing company events, still pushing company content. And the personal page, yes. So Cheryl basically said that, yes, the personal pages needs to be open to public. So make sure that if that's the strategy you adopt, make sure that your personal page is open to public. Don't make it private, and then no one can find you, no one can contact you. It's going to be a disaster. So is there any other questions?
I think Alvin was asking some questions about about betting.
Okay, let me search for Elvin. Oh, hi, Elvin. So the betting industry in Singapore is presently full of fake brands or OEM products. Salespeople are not sharing genuine technical knowledge to help customers buy legit products. Most customers are buying low-cost products after watching social contents these days. Thus, genuine betting brands are hurting. What kind of ads do you think is good for me to produce? You've already said it, education-based marketing, because the problem is most people don't know how to buy your products. So it is education-based marketing. For you, you can do story selling, but the whole problem with story selling is that nobody sees the mattress brands. When someone comes to your house, they don't go, oh, you bought this brand and it costs so much. You know, no one's going to come to your house, look at your bed and go, oh, you know, it's such a big thing. So it's not something that drives stories, right? you can still do story selling. You can say that, and actually for story selling, what you can do, Alvin, is to collaborate with partners. So for example, chiropractors, collaborate with chiropractors, collaborate with physiotherapists, because you are after the same people. You're after the same target audience. So have some collab on, so basically, and not just on content, you could actually collab on getting the physiotherapist or the chiropractors to become your affiliates. So if they recommend a good bedding to their customers, they get a 10% cut, but then you get to sell through them. So it is essentially, you can create some kind of business model around there. So remember that it's down to your branding. How do you brand yourself? Are you the one that the brand that chiropractors choose? So a bit like Sensodyne. Sensodyne is the dentist's choice, right? So it's down to how you push your marketing and how you push your branding, because you need to be very clear on how you do that. There's always going to be in the market that buys low cost, right? So there's always going to be the people that will never buy from you. They only buy the cheapest mattress because that's the only thing they can afford. So understand your buyer's pyramid. So who is going to be that top rung of that pyramid that will always be ready to buy? Who are you ready to buy? Basically the spring just broke yesterday. They're looking for, a new mattress. Then how do they start their search journey? Then you need to understand how they buy, the customer buying process, and do they go to Google? Do they go to whatever? Then that's your entry point. And then on top of that, how do you make people change their mattress? So you're unfortunately in an industry where people don't change their products that, frequently. So, you realize that your funnel is always going to be very skinny. Your conversion rate is always going to be quite poor, because it is what we call a luxury product. But then maybe have collaborations with renovation contractors, because that's when people are buying new products. They're buying new beds, they're buying new mattresses. So figure out at what point in time people are buying certain things, and what point in time people are interested in changing a bed, something that they've already paid 3,000-4,000 for, right? Maybe if the chiropractor says this will eliminate your pain, I would throw that mattress out, because pain for me is something for my own sanity, right? So, but of course, the ones that are ready to buy and buying now, renovation contractors would be your way in. And then, give them an affiliate cut if they recommend your product, or, ID designers, same thing. If you give them a cut of, what you sell for, then essentially they'll be more willing to push your product. Okay, so yeah, kids mattresses are a good one actually, because kids mattresses are the ones that are always getting thrown out, and then you have to get a new one because it's disgusting. They vomit and they poop on it. So yeah, so essentially, I hope I answered your questions, but definitely don't miss out on education-based marketing, because that's the one that you're going to need for next week. All right, do you know if I missed any more questions, Jen?
I think we look pretty good. Yeah, we look pretty good. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any more final questions? Otherwise, Jen will take over by now. Oh, thank you, everyone. Then I think there's no more questions. I think next week, really don't miss next week's session, because education-based marketing is really like the key tool that most people are using right now, that is really driving the highest conversion rates. And then, again, with positive or negative, you might even reach, the fourth segment, and, not just have 40% conversion, you might actually be able to hit 70% conversion sometimes. So to me, the home seller one was really whacking the 70% conversion. And I think that's why they're doing so well.
Also, yeah, I think I keep getting questions about session recordings, and I'm sorry, unfortunately, even though these sessions are recorded for archival purposes, we're not able to distribute them because there's some proprietary content involved. So, yeah, I hope that you managed to take notes. If you need your AI note taker to come in, please bring your AI note taker in. If you need to record on your own end, that's not something I can control. But yes, unfortunately, I cannot distribute a recorded session. I'm so sorry. I seek your understanding on this, but thank you so much for coming anyway.
Jason has one question, probably the last question that we take today already. So how do you master up the courage and take on risks to start a business? Oh, you missed the resiliency talk. Jason, just start. Really, and then after that, it's one step at a time, one step at a time. Of course, you know, when you're managing risks, you know, if you are alone, you're single, you're not married, no kids, what's the loss? You know, just start. And then, you know, if you have kids, you have, you know, a wife, you have house to pay for, then I would say to you that don't jump ship until you have some traction. So already start the online lead generation process, you know, the same way that Made Without Borders, you know, even though we have nothing to sell yet, what we want to do is to just generate the buzz, generate the content. And then if you do that for about 6 to 8 months, you know, consistently, you would have built up a very, very good funnel that you can already tap on even without ads and without a lot of the other stuff. So then you actually minimize the risk of starting a business. So I'd say that, you know, spend 2-3 hours every night after your work to basically focus on running a new business and really running lead generation and creating all that content and stuff like that. And it's not difficult to hire an intern. It's not difficult to hire a virtual assistant from India to basically help you with that. Jason, if you're interested, just email me, LinkedIn, message me and ask me for this thing called the Entrepreneurs Startup Toolkit, which, you know, I will show you which is the cheapest CopSec that I use for my business, which is the cheapest, you know, accounting service, which is the cheapest everything. And I've literally spoken to like more than 20 CopSecs and 30 accounting companies. And, you know, basically I use them for my own business. So then I'll just refer that on to you if that's something that you're thinking about starting. And like I said, just start, you know, you don't know if you're going to succeed or fail, but with every experience that comes with it, it's a very good growth journey. So I really hope that you make this effort and then go and also attend all the industry trade conferences that are relevant to the particular business that you want to start, and then start building up your network and start building up, you know, your thing before you leave your current job to jump into entrepreneurship full time. All right, thank you, everyone.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect question to wrap everything up. Thank you so much, everybody, for spending your lunch hour with us today. We'll see you next week. Same time. It's the same link, actually. So you can just save this Zoom link. If you have my calendar invite, please save it in your calendar. Please just put it there. I'll also send you a reminder email. But yeah, the slides, please fill up.
If you want the slides, you need to fill out my feedback form, not the NLB one. NLB's feedback form is so that they will continuously bring me back. So you have to do both. And then if you fill in my feedback form, it would be then remember that at the end when I ask you whether or not you want to be added to the mailing list and it's a PDPA check off, make sure to say yes that you want to be added to the mailing list, because if you say no, I cannot send you anything. So remember that needs to be yes, because a few people have made that mistake.
Yeah. But yes, so if also Jason, if you need community, well, pretty much that's what we're trying to build here at NLB. It's a community for you to not be so alone when you start your entrepreneurship journey. So
yeah, Jason, definitely join the Change Makers group on Telegram, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs on that group. So introduce yourself, tell the people what you're trying to do, put in your LinkedIn there, and people will start adding you.
Yeah, I think yes, there should be. Oh, my feedback form. Okay, hang on. Sorry.
Yes, that's my feedback form. Correct.
Go.gov. Sorry, someone's asking for my form. Yeah. Okay, so all the links have been given. I'll send a follow-up email later if anybody needs anything. But yes, just so we'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody.
All right, take care. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye. Jason, you might need to check the Telegram to see if there are any upcoming events. For NLB, it's only, I think recently it's only this series, so we'll be back next week. But for Change Makers, they might have something else going on. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for all your interest today and your participation. We'll see you guys in the library program. Which group is the Change Makers Telegram? You can go to Juliet's link. I show you. I can show you guys. Hang on. So when you click on Juliet's link tree, can you still see my screen? Yeah, when you click on Juliet's link tree, there's this group here, Telegram Changemakers SG. So that's what you click. For the feedback form over here, please click this one. This is Juliet's feedback form if you need her slides. Yeah. Yeah, well, good. Yay. Okay, thanks so much, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.